Maxed Out Man, helping you become the man you were made to be.
Hey guys, it's Kevin Davis from the Maxed Out Men podcast. I am here today with Stephen Pivnik. Before we get started, don't forget to go to maxedoutman.com. Check us out on all the social media avenues. We're everywhere. Maxed Out Man, just search for that, or Maxed Out Man course. We got some new stuff coming out in 2024, membership courses, high ticket coaching, that kind of thing. So go ahead and check that out. Give a quick bio. Stephen is an international keynote speaker, best-selling author, business advisor, and serial entrepreneur. Aren't we all, right? Everybody I talk to on this thing is a serial entrepreneur, which is really awesome. Specializing in the information technology market. He grew his last company, Binary Tree, to over 200 employees across 12 countries before a successful exit to a $4 billion competitor, Quest Software. That's a great exit. That's really super cool. As a trusted business advisor, Stephen partners with leaders on how to achieve similar business success and perseverance in their entrepreneurial journey. Stephen's passion for endurance sports got him to qualify and compete in the Ironman World Championship. Holy crap, I'm ready to talk about that. Race many ultra marathons. We call you crazy people, basically, those of us that are not built for long distance running.
It's
right. And summit some of the tallest peaks on 7 continents. His blend of practical business advice and inspirational storytelling leaves the audience energized and motivated to go the distance in business and life. We're going to talk about his new book, Built to Finish, which talks about that I just said, which compares entrepreneurship with endurance athletics, and how really entrepreneurship is a race and a journey and marathon and all of those things. So I'm super excited to talk about that. We talk, I'm a fitness guy, so we talk a lot about that kind of stuff. So I'm super excited to kind of tie that in. I'm not built for running. I'm not very aerodynamic, but yeah, super excited. Stephen, thanks for joining me, man. And thanks for jumping on. I know we had a little calendar snafu, so I'm glad you got done with your workout in time, and we'll have a great combo.
No problem. Thanks for having me, Kevin. I love the title of your podcast. This is like right up my alley. Maxed out.
Yeah.
Let's go.
And that's what it is. Some people think maxed out means, like totally stressed out, but it's actually like, let's maximize the potential and optimize our lives. That's kind of the point. But hey, thanks for coming. I want to know we got some time. So I'd love to kind of get your background, how you got to where you are, how you developed kind of the strategies based on your challenges, based on your successes, and just kind of give us the backstory, really.
Yeah, I mean, without taking up too much time, I came from an immigrant family. I was originally born in the former Soviet Union, what is now the Ukraine, a town called Odessa. Okay. We immigrated here in 1972. I was a toddler, and my parents were, very, very scrappy, very entrepreneurial. They did what they needed to do to put food on the table. So when I was a computer nerd growing up, my Commodore 64, which was like the first,
I had one of those with like the little, and people don't even know what a cassette tape is, but use the cassette tape as the data storage, which is crazy. Yeah, I remember doing that.
I still have my original one in storage someplace. I should bring it out and show people a picture.
Dude, that's cool.
Wild. I mean, this little phone here has a million times more capacity than that computer ever did.
Gosh, yeah.
Anyway, so my mother recognized my nerdy nature, and she gave me a pass to not go to college, but to go take a computer programming course so that I can go get a job quickly. I did that. So after 6 months of learning how to program a language called COBOL, which was a mainframe programming language back in the day, I got a job, and that was the beginning of my computer career. 3 or 4 years into my computer career, I got bitten by the entrepreneurial bug that was embedded in me, by my parents and grandparents. Started my own company. We were doing custom application development. We were hired to, it was a really boring project at that time. We were hired to write a conversion utility to convert email data from one platform to another. Long story short, fast forward over 20 years, that tiny little program to convert email data mushroomed into a over $40 million a year international business.
Wow.
Yeah. So did a lot of things. I mean, made a ton.
Data is profitable. Let's just say that, right?
Data is super profitable. If a large company is converting its email systems from one to another or moving to the cloud, they want to make sure their employees come into the same inbox, the same calendar, same contacts, right? So our claim to fame was zero disruption to the end user.
Wow.
All that data comes across perfectly. And we grew a large business. We did a whole bunch of other things, but that's the easiest way to describe what was the foundation of our business. So along that journey, my midlife crisis was finally recognizing that I got some bad genes in me. Between my parents and my grandparents, they had it all. High blood pressure, diabetes, cancer, strokes, you name it, they had it. I felt that that's in me somewhere, someday, somehow it's going to rear its ugly head. And I want to be in the best shape possible to fight it if and when it comes. I found out about this thing called triathlon, which prior to me learning about it, I thought it was only an Olympic sport. I'm like, how does a mere mortal do a triathlon? Apparently, there's a website called beginnertriathlete.com. You can find a local race in your community, short distances, train, sign up, race, boom, you're a triathlete.
Wow.
I did that. After crossing the finish line that evening, I learned about something called Ironman, and then the Ironman World Championship. And this light bulb went off my head. I said to myself, I don't know how, someday, somehow, I'm going to cross the finish line in Kona, Hawaii. So that goal was set. So now I'm marching along two paths, right? My entrepreneurial journey with the company growing. I'm doing endurance sports, going longer and longer distances. And when I finally accomplished both, coincidentally, 12 months apart, I said, you know what? I need to write a book to memorialize the entrepreneurial journey and the endurance sports journey, and offer my personal stories as well as lessons learned and tips and tricks and motivation for other people to set large goals.
And that's built to finish, I can't really think of a better really analogy and connection between what we do as entrepreneurs, and endurance, obviously, but it's also, has little spurts of sprinting, or you've got uphills, you've got downhills, right? Especially and in the case of a triathlon, you've got, biking, swimming, running. So it's 3 different disciplines. Really, that's amazing that you're able to put that together. Did you kind of see this as like an addiction for yourself? Like, you can kind of have good addictions and bad addictions, right? But to become, for most of you guys, I think it becomes a little bit of an obsession.
100%. I mean, there's no sugarcoating it. It's definitely an obsession, addiction, call it what you want. It's an incredible dopamine hit when you cross that finish line. And once you get it, you want some people are one and done. And I have complete respect, for somebody that sets out a goal to do a triathlon or an Ironman or a marathon. And then they're like, accomplished, I'm done. Respect. You already did more than most. But for most, I think it becomes for me especially, it became a complete addiction. And every single time I cross a finish line, no matter how much pain I'm in, within hours, I'm like, okay, I got to do this again.
Yeah. I'm a 2 and done guy. We did a bunch of halves, and then we decided to do a marathon here, which I'm at 4,500 feet. And then we did a marathon in Oklahoma, which is great to train at 4,500 and then go do one at like 600 feet. But after that second one, I was like, this kind of beats me up. It's not really something that I was great that I could say that I did it, but I'm 6 feet. I'm about 195 pounds of mostly muscle. And so, like I said, I'm not real aerodynamic. So, and I got bad IT band stuff going on. So that's excuses. It does intrigue me, the whole triathlon thing. I've always thought that I'd have a really hard time with the swimming part of it.
Yeah, I mean, the number one reason most people stay away from triathlon is the swimming. I was very comfortable in the water, but I was a horrible swimmer. When I signed up for this first one that I mentioned, it's called a sprint distance that only requires a 800-meter swim, which is 32 laps.
Yeah.
Right? I couldn't do 2. I went in my pool, I went back and forth, and I was exhausted for the rest of the day. I didn't have any form. I didn't have any endurance. I didn't know how to breathe properly. Went back the next day, I did 3 laps. Now that's a 50% increase. And I did 4 laps. And you're allowed to stop in these races, right? There's buoys and there's kayakers that are there for safety. So if you get winded, you can just hold on to a kayak. As long as you're not making forward motion, you can rest. And a lot of people do. Yeah. So, but yeah, to your point, a lot of people are afraid to start because of the swimming. And it's really not that bad.
Yeah, because and again, you're not just like in life, you have strengths, right? Because I know there are people that excel on the cycle, right, or excel in the running, or excel in swimming, and the guys that are top of the game, probably like you are, they kind of have gotten it figured out for all 3. But, just because you don't excel at all three doesn't mean you can't try it.
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
been on the back of my mind to try something like this. I don't know if I could convince myself to do it, but for sure.
there's so many funny, cartoons about triathletes, and one of them is, why suck at one sport when you can suck at three?
I like that. That'll probably be my story. I remember when we did the Oklahoma City Memorial Marathon, which is a super cool marathon if you're looking for something like as a first goal for marathons. But I remember this little kid, he was probably like 6 years old. We were at like mile 19 or 20, which is like that point at which you go into this is absolute misery, and now it's
Yep, the
pure
wall. It's called the wall.
willpower, right, to get through. But he had this poster board that said toenails are for pussies. And like that was like the motivation. That was so funny and so motivating to finish that race. And we sucked. Like it was my wife and I, and we were not fast or anything, which is fine. We can say that we did it, but
it's true. I mean, I wouldn't want to scare you away, your viewers, by showing you my toenails right now, but they take a beating. It's a rite of passage for long distance runners.
Yeah. And so I'm curious about, when you talk about your parents and the entrepreneurial spirit, former Soviet Union, communism and all that is not exactly something you say, oh yeah, there's probably a lot of entrepreneurs in that. So I'd love to have you explain what that means, because I in my mind, I can kind of put things together, put two and two together.
Yeah.
But kind of walk me through that, because I think that's super interesting.
I only remember it based on the stories that I've heard. I really didn't experience it too much, other than my father took us back when I was 18 years old. So this is before, the wall came down and the Iron Curtain came down. So I just heard about it, stories. Basic, premise of communism is everybody's equal. You get what the government deems you're entitled to. Everything is rationed out, from clothing to food to, bare necessities. You're entitled to 1.2 rolls of toilet paper a month, 4 boxes of cereal, or I'm making that up.
Yeah.
So you either accept that, or you become really, really scrappy. And you figure things out, and you figure out a way to get more than the average Joe is allowed. And I think my parents and grandparents did a great job of that. My grandfather was in the logistics business, which means he had access to goods going back and forth from location to location. So somehow, some way, some of those goods, ended up in our coffers.
Yeah.
So you had to do that. Otherwise, you would have to get by on the bare necessities that the government provided, which was sad. So those long lines for bread, for milk, for anything were 100% true. And those I actually experienced when I went back there when I was 18 years old, and it was pretty sad to see.
Yeah, it's interesting, because that shows in my mind that there is a certain, first of all, that whole drive to do more, to accomplish more, to provide for your family at a level that is beyond what you're being told is the, because like there's a capitalistic spirit that exists, I think, in everyone.
Yeah.
Because we want that, right? Like we want more for our family, or at least enough for our family. And when everybody's telling you that's when the government,
at the end of the day, humans are hunter gatherers, right?
Yeah.
So they want you to gather as much as possible when they can, and to store up for the hard times, right?
Yeah.
So you never know when the hard times coming. So therefore, you're gathering nonstop. It's in our DNA.
Yeah, for sure. Which some people have more talent than others, for sure, and circumstances make a difference. What is we kind of got the backstory of how you got there. Like, as far as getting that entrepreneurial bug, what does that look like for you? Like, how did you decide, okay, well, this is something I want to do for myself? Because, to that point, even though everybody has kind of that spirit, not everyone has the ability, right? Not everybody can actually be an entrepreneur, because it's risk management. It's
sure.
lack of fear in certain ways. It's ability to fail and get back up, all those things. What did that look like for you?
Yeah, you definitely need to have a high degree of risk. You can't be super risk avoid. You can't exercise a lot of risk avoidance, because you're never going to get off the ground. For me personally, as I was advancing in my computer career, I ended up getting a job at a consulting company, or really a staffing company, where the staffing company would get contracts with large companies, in my case in New York City, in Manhattan, and then they would go find the staff to go place on these projects. So I was placed on a project to do some work, to do programming. And I'm just making these numbers up a little bit. They were charging, let's say, the customer $100 an hour for my time, and they were paying me $60 an hour for my time, making a $40 margin. And which was fine at the time. But, as time went on, I'm like, these guys aren't doing anything. Okay, granted, give them credit. They got me the job.
Yeah.
But they don't add any value whatsoever other than collecting this margin. And the more I learned about this business, I'm like, this is not that hard to do. I can go find these customers. I can cut out the middleman. I can make that full billing rate. Plus, I can provide a lot of value to the customers that these guys aren't doing, like project management, quality assurance, and a whole bunch of other things that this quote unquote staffing agency wasn't doing. And that's exactly what I did. And at the time, it was relatively easy because I had just got married, didn't have too many expenses. I knew I can. Even if I only found five, or I'm not five, even if I only found 10 billable hours a week of work, I can, make the rent payment and the car payment. So I really didn't have, too much to lose. And my fallback plan was, hey, you know what? I can just go get a job. If this doesn't work, I can get a job.
Yeah.
So, so that's what it looked like for me, and it worked.
Yeah. It's always nice to have that fallback plan to say, especially when you have, because a lot of times as entrepreneurs, we have that skill set. And it's like, well, if I have to go get a real job, I'll go get a real job, right? Like and sometimes we have to go through that journey for sure. So I want you to walk me through kind of the book, stuff that you've got in there, and just how these endurance athletics really relate to our journey as entrepreneurs. Right.
Sure.
Like there's kind of this, but because I'm sure it's well organized and you kind of go through that. So, in as much time as you want, I'd love for you just kind of walk through that without giving away the whole, no spoiler alerts, but, we still want to read the book, but yeah.
Yeah. So basically what I found as I started embarking on all these endurance journeys, I found that there's a lot of similarities: planning, preparation, and the book covers a lot of this.
Yeah.
So planning, preparation, execution, pivots, setbacks, stamina. All of these, if I say those words, each of them can be applicable to endurance sports, and they're definitely applicable to entrepreneurship. The more stamina I started building in my endurance journey, the more stamina I had for the hard times in the business world. One of the biggest things that I point to, and there's a whole chapter on this, is about KPIs and reporting on data. When I started endurance sports, I started tracking a whole bunch of things, right? There's, all these sports watches and little computers that track your mileage, your pace, your heart rate, your calories in, your calories out, your distances. I started getting all these reports, and I'm looking at these reports and I'm saying, wow, I have more data about my training and my races than I have about my business.
Yeah.
Not that I didn't have any reports in the business world, but I felt that these were superior. So I created this entire initiative within the company to start doing a better job of tracking things. I met with every single department leader, and we came up with a set of metrics that we were going to track on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis. And we created an operating guide where we would meet every single month as a team. We created a pretty little binder, with sections for every single department. And instead of having just, subjective, status update, amongst all the members, we would actually be looking at numbers, and more importantly, we'd be looking at how the numbers are trending and why they're trending in either positive or negative direction. So that just gave us so much more insight into every area of the business. And the more insight I got in the business, the more I started tracking in my endurance hobbies, and vice versa. So they kind of fed on each other, right? Then the goals became bigger in the business. As my goals became bigger in endurance, like I went from sprint distance triathlon to Olympic to half Ironman to full Ironman. And then in the ultra marathon world, I went from marathon to 50K to 50 mile to 100K to 100 mile. Those goals kept growing. I'm like, why can't the goals in the company start getting bigger and bigger? So it all feeds on each other.
Yeah.
The last part that I love to talk about with the book, and this is one of the final chapters, is called Envisioning the Finish. I'm a huge fan of manifestation and envisioning things. The human mind can't tell the difference between an event actually happening or an event expertly envisioned in one's mind. And you don't need to become a master meditator to do this. You can just watch a couple of YouTube videos, just like meditation 101, to learn how to envision something. When you do that, the human mind, the body just automatically programs itself to make certain decisions in order to accomplish what you just envisioned. And I can't tell you how powerful of a tool this was. I was doing this even before I knew what the word manifestation meant in the 90s. All of our clients at the time were in Manhattan. All the buildings were skyscrapers. Every single sales call I'd go on, I'd pause at the door, I'd look up, close my eyes, and I say to myself, next time you're going to cross this threshold, this building is going to be a customer of yours, or this customer, this company. And it worked like 90% of the time. So, and then I fast forward, when it came time to getting ready to sell the company, and also I was on this track to get to the Ironman World Championship, I did two things. I wrote a check out to myself for a very large amount of money, a specific number, and I printed out a poster of Kona Ironman World Championship, and I hung them right here, right in front of my computer. And I saw it all day, every day. It was in my peripheral vision. I couldn't get away from it. So again, when your mind sees that, it automatically just does the right things, makes the right decisions in order to, get to that proverbial finish line.
Yeah, I have a piece of paper just because I didn't print. I print it's a color piece, but it's my vision board, right? Which is kind of that same concept. But I like the idea of writing. So the intention was that you were going to cash that check at some point. Is that the idea, right?
Yeah. It was basically it was for the amount of money that I wanted to sell the company for. I didn't take home all of it, obviously, because there's a whole bunch of expenses in place after an exit. Which many entrepreneurs don't really realize. So that's one of the many things.
When you say you sell your company for $10 million, you may get like two by the time everything's done.
It all depends. I mean, I highly advise folks to create what I call this waterfall model. So you plug in a number at the top. Obviously, you have to speak to your accountants to find out what the tax ramifications are of that number. And then there's a million and one fees. There's legal fees, there's accounting fees, there's investment banker fees, there's consultant fees. Then there's your stock option plans and your other equity plans and your other contingency plans. And then there's state and local taxes, and there's a million and one numbers, right? And then it comes down to what you, Mr. or Mrs. Entrepreneur, get.
Yeah.
And people are blown away with the difference between the top line and the bottom line. And then it really helps you set a proper goal for what that top line should be to make sure that the bottom line is enough.
Yeah, because if your goal is if you have that goal in mind, right? Like if I want to get, let's say, just make it a round number. If I want to get $1 million, there's a much larger number that I have to get out of the company in order for me to get that $1 million number. Yeah, I don't, it's something I've never sold a company, but I know kind of a little bit of the ins and outs of it. But to your point about the middleman earlier, there's like 50 of them. in that scenario, right? So everybody gets a little bit of a cut. I think it's really cool that you, because I would think that in some cases, a lot of entrepreneurs or business people or people in general will kind of trade one for the other, right? Like in your case, you are excelling as an endurance athlete. You've got these goals. And so that it's very easy to trade those goals, that energy, that drive, and then let your company not get that, right? We have a finite amount of energy and drive and all that. How did you, first of all, I think it's super cool that you can do that, but how was your mindset around that in order to kind of keep those two, I call them parallel roads, right? In an entrepreneur's journey, I envision my highway as like one of those Chinese 16 lane, and sometimes they weave and all that, but we really are, multiple paths.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I just found a way to make it work. There was definitely sacrifices, adding a family and 2 grown kids at the same exact time, right? So there's definitely sacrifices that need to be made. There's no doubt about it. And then don't forget, sleep is super important because without proper
right. Oh yeah, we have to sleep too. That's always right.
I hate people that say, "Oh, I can get by in 3 hours of sleep." You know what? You're doing your body a massive disservice if you're getting by in 3 to 4 hours of sleep. 6 to 8 is really where you should be.
Yeah,
ideally 8. I just found a way to make it work. A lot of people say that, I can't cut out television, I can't cut out social media or reading. Well, my answer is social media works when you're on the treadmill.
Yeah.
You can, you can watch Netflix when you're on a stationary bike. You can do you can listen to podcasts while you're swimming in the pool. There's a ton of inexpensive waterproof headsets that you can buy.
Yep.
So you don't really need to give up a lot of some of the extracurricular hobbies that you currently have to train. And that's what I did. I mean, I love TV just like everybody else. I love a whole bunch of other things which may or may not be considered a waste of time. I can do that on my stationary bike. I can do that on a treadmill. I was on a podcast all the time while swimming. So when you really want something, you figure out a way to incorporate that into your life.
And in your case, you were able to weave those two scenarios into the business, and which I'm sure helped. All of that data made your company way more sellable and way more
100%.
attractive and more valuable, because I don't think people track stuff in general. Like, I don't think people track their business right. I'm guilty of this. I'm fall into what you were doing, which is I'm much more likely to track my macros, to track my protein intake and my heart rate and all the, my reps and personal lifting and all that stuff than I am. Sure. But if you look at my books, they're probably not up to the same level of snuff that they should be. Right. And so this is encouraging for me to kind of do that.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's a large opportunity for most businesses to track things better. Quick anecdote on this. I'm helping a client sell their company right now, and we're talking to investment bankers. One investment banker said that another client of theirs presented, when they asked for their financial statements, they presented 2 reports, cash in and cash out. That's it. And this was a $50 million company, 50.
Really?
All the owner cared about, am I making more money than I'm spending? Didn't care about anything else. I mean, right there and then, there's an opportunity for so much improvement and so much optimization if you just dig in deeper. He was just happy that he was making more than he was spending.
Yeah, I mean, which is great. If somebody wants to, they'll assign a certain valuation to that, but it would probably be a tenth of what he would have had he had actual reports.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Showed all that.
Back to your question about the book, another great chapter that I love. The term ABC in the business world refers to always be closing, meaning business in sales, right? Always be closing new business. I use the term ABC to always be closing your books. I wanted to make sure that our company was always ready for due diligence. So whether it would be a new banking relationship, a new partnership with a big player, a new investor, a potential sale, if you come up with a process to have your books in tip-top shape at all times, you're going to increase the perception that a bank, a partner, or an acquirer is going to have, because they're going to say, wow, these guys are all buttoned up. We asked for this stuff, which usually takes 2 months to get back. They give it back to us in 2 days. This is a buttoned up organization, and your credibility goes through the roof.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, ironically, on Monday, I had my first meeting with my new CPA/fractional CFO guy. He's like, well, here's what it's going to cost you, because we have to go back 27 months for the last 2 years and clean up all your books, which is great. Like, I'm glad I'm finally taking those steps.
Right.
But he's the guy that I would say, hey, I need this information. And he's like, well, go to your dashboard and print out this report and you'll have it. Right. And so that's something, and it's not really that expensive, even for a small company like mine. Even for a bigger company, it really isn't that expensive, for sure. So you're married. I have an interesting question for you. I've actually interviewed 3 high-level entrepreneurs this week, including yourself, and we talked about marriage. One of the things with Maxed Out Man, we talk about the man, which is health and fitness and optimization, all that; marriage, which is obvious; and then mission, which is some of what we're talking about: legacy, how to build your business, how to be profitable, all that. The marriage aspect I found really interesting, because if you described my wife and these other, and this is where the question come in, these other 2 gentlemen specifically, their wives and my wife are almost the same in terms of like their makeup, their background, their fears, their worries, how they put up with us as entrepreneurs and all that. So I'm curious, like, where you fall into that range, just for my own edification more than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, my wife had a career. She had a career of her own. We had help with our kids from grandparents, from nannies, and all that. So she definitely pursued a career of her own, and she was always just incredibly supportive of my craziness.
Yeah,
these sports take a lot of time, and not only the training, but just getting to the venue, getting to the race, recuperate, and especially like the mountain climbing trips. I mean, those are a month at a time.
Wow.
So she's been super supportive of all of these endeavors, and she enjoys going. I mean, she goes to a lot of them with me. So I try to pick venues which we can turn into mini vacations.
Yeah.
Ironman is I hate to sound like an Ironman commercial, but they have grown so much that they have a race, 3 different races every weekend someplace in the world.
Wow.
So you can literally, throw a dart at their entire venue list and pick an incredible destination to race at. And doesn't need to be a full Ironman. It could be a half Ironman, which is a little bit easier. Still hard.
Right.
And they have other races as well, because it's turned into this ginormous racing organization. And then turn these races into like little mini vacations for the family, which I did, which made it a lot easier for them to swallow.
Yeah, I'm sure. Is she an athlete as well? Does she work out with you and kind of do shorter runs and that kind of thing?
I got her to do there was a Philly 10 miler. It was one of the races in Philadelphia. That was the furthest I got her to go. And she was one of these one and done.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've done it. My wife is super into Wonder Woman. So they have these DC comics, like fun runs almost.
Okay.
And so she keeps signing us up for 10Ks, which I'm totally fine with. So 10Ks, I mean, dude, I could just go do it right now. It's easy. If you're in any kind of shape at all, doing a 10K is not that hard. But yeah, she keeps signing us up because she likes the little medals that she gets. So
yeah, it's off camera here, but I've got a box of them. I mean, I've raced in probably 50 different events at this point. I mean, I'll be honest with you, and that's my one. That's from Kona right there.
Oh, very cool.
Kona, Hawaii, the big one. I love collecting them. It's a great little keepsake to remind you of the challenge you overcame.
Yeah, because that's a snapshot, right? Like this is the snapshot, because your memory and your mind is like when you look at that, I'm sure you can envision, what looking at yourself from the outside, what you felt during that time, hopefully forgotten a little bit of the pain, like with childbirth. But yeah, so yeah. And so if someone wanted to get started kind of down this journey with doing endurance athletics, like take someone like me. I've done a couple of marathons, a bunch of halves. I've said, okay, I'm hanging it up, but maybe I would want to do something that's a little bit more challenging for myself. I'm 51. Probably you're kind of in that same age range, so that's no excuse, clearly.
Yeah, I'm 54, no excuse.
Yeah, so there's no excuses there. How do we what's your recommendation for kind of starting down that road?
Yeah, it's really easy. I mean, if you want to go down the triathlon road, it's definitely, I mean, again, this is coming from somebody that's done 17 full distance Ironman, so take it with a little bit of a grain of salt. But it's not that hard to get started. I got both my daughters to do triathlons. I got my older daughter to do 2 New York City marathons with me, and I got her to do a half Ironman. So she did it. Others can do it. Pick a sprint distance triathlon. There's one in not every community, in most communities.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, anybody listening, you probably don't need to drive more than 2 to 3 hours to a race. Go to beginnertriathlete.com, find a local race in your area, sprint distance, the shortest one. And then on that same site or on a million other sites, get a training plan. A training plan will tell you exactly how much you need to swim, bike, and run on a daily and weekly basis in order to prepare for that event. If you can afford it, please get a coach, get somebody, or at least a training buddy, somebody that's ideally has a little bit of experience under their belt. This is an incredibly helpful community. Even on beginnertriathlete.com, every single year, they have these cohorts that form, led by an experienced triathlete that just gives free advice. There's a million and one Facebook groups. Everybody just wants the community to flourish and to continue to grow. So you'd be amazed at how helpful the community is. So my advice would be beginnertriathlete.com and pick a short race. Check it out, cross that finish line, and see if you're one and done or whether you want to go further.
Yeah.
And after that, there's an Olympic distance. Then after that, there's a half iron, then the full iron. And believe it or not, there's actually longer distances than full Ironman. I just did something called Ultraman last weekend, which was, the distances are ridiculous. So
yeah, that's because it becomes like, what's that next challenge, right? You can only do so many of the same thing before you're like, I need to challenge myself, because it never gets quote unquote easy,
right.
But it's like, I'm not really going beyond my abilities. Like if my ability is to get through this and to keep getting faster or whatever, it's not really, that much of a challenge, right?
Yeah,
In
some
order to
people
do
want
that.
to push themselves and become faster, which is great. My motto is not fast, not last. So I just wanted to train enough just to get through it because I love the journey as much. And I talk about this in my book as well. A lot of times the journey is just as important and just as much fun as the actual destination. And
Right.
for me, the journey of training, eating right, staying healthy and getting to that starting line is as fun as starting and then finishing the actual race. So
Yeah.
I personally love the journey. I don't do it to win. And so to further challenge myself, instead of getting faster, I just go longer.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's more sustainable. And I think really that's a great analogy for life or metaphor for life. It's like this is supposed to be fun.
Mm-hmm.
And you're supposed to enjoy it along the way. I had one friend that I worked with back in the day, and I remember him telling me like, we don't spend absolutely any money. We don't really do anything. Because I'm planning, and he was in his late 20s, early 30s at the time, because he was planning for retirement.
Okay.
Right. And I'm like, dude, what if you die at 45 and you literally have done nothing with your life other than go to work and put money in the bank? Right. It's just is like, what a waste,
That's
right?
pretty
We don't
sad.
know how long we have, right?
That's pretty sad. You have to live life along the way.
Yeah, for sure. I want to ask you one question. How should men, I wrote this down. I'm curious how you believe men should challenge themselves in life, business, marriage, all of these things, like, because that's something you do, right? So like, what is your recommendation for like what that looks like and why men don't challenge themselves is probably more accurate of a question, because that's something we see in our space a lot. It's like, your biggest challenge is getting up to get more Doritos while you sit and watch football all weekend, right? And so what is it that men aren't doing and what should they be doing more of?
I mean, I think some people, I don't know what percentage of humanity, are just happy with the status quo, right? They're happy with the job, happy with the relationship, happy with whatever hobbies they have or don't have, and they're fine with that. But there's just so much opportunity in this world to do more that I'm just a huge proponent of, finding something that's going to get you out of your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
That's another part of the book. It's called Life. True learning and life really begins at the edge of your comfort zone. It's just so super exciting to go and accomplish something you didn't think was possible before. The example I like to use is, my wife's not into mountaineering like I am, but I got her to go onto a pretty advanced hike. It was hard. We were both, huffing and puffing. We actually had a tour guide because we didn't know this trail. And we finally got to the top. It took like an hour and a half, 2 hours to get to the top of this hill in upstate New York. And then we saw this incredible view of the Hudson River and all the foliage, and the sights were just, and the look on her face, if I could just capture that and put that into a pill, she was euphoric, like, oh my God, this is incredible. So I translate that to a whole bunch of other things. People would be amazed in terms of like what they can possibly accomplish and how good it's going to make them feel. And in the process of setting slightly larger goals for yourself, I think you become a better person and you encourage others to do the same. And now all of a sudden you're living in a community of folks or a group of friends that are trying to establish bigger and better goals for themselves, and the results would be phenomenal. So
yeah, because then it's like that stair step, right? You just keep getting better, and you have people in your world that are challenging you and making it more like that euphoria, right? There's always this destination, and there's only so many people that get to see some of these things that because I'm in Montana, so we have a ton of these hikes that lead to mountain lakes at 6,000, 7,000 feet above sea level.
Gorgeous.
And there's just, crystal clear water you can see down 50 feet, or whatever, right to the bottom. But it may take us, an hour and a half to get up there. But the reward is that then we get to sit and enjoy, being with each other and enjoy being in nature and seeing something that people that can't make that hike or are unwilling to make that hike literally will never see unless it's in a picture.
Yeah.
And so
100%. So again, life begins at the edge of your comfort zone. There's just so much cool things to do in this world. And it doesn't need to be like crazy physical, like my crazy endurance sports or getting to the top of a mountain. There's a lot of, and many of them are free.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I love it. I think that's a great place to land the plane. Tell me more, like how we find the book. And I know it's been out, you said, for about a month, right? Is that so?
it's been out for a month.
Yeah.
It's exceeded all my expectations. It hit #1 the day it launched, and it's still in the top 10 on the Amazon bestseller list.
Wow.
So it's called Built to Finish. Built to Finish. You can find it on Amazon. You can also go to my website, stephenpivnik.com. I like to blog about all my crazy adventures on my crazy races. So you can sign up for my blog at stephenpivnik.com and learn more about me, about my speaking gigs. I love to get up on stage and just to motivate others to go set and achieve, big goals. So happy to do that if anybody needs an inspirational speaker.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. And I'll put those in the show notes as well. So, hey, Ben, thanks so much for joining me and for like giving me some inspiration today, because I'm actually inspired to think more about it. We'll see whether see if I can get my ass off the couch. I don't really sit on the couch, but to go and challenge myself to do something along those endurance athletics.
If you can do a 10K, you can do a sprint triathlon. I'd love to hear how you complete that.
I'm going to look into it for sure.
All right, man. Thanks,
all right.
Kevin.
Thanks, Stephen. Have a good day.
Take care.
If you're looking to really maximize your life and become the man you were made to be, head over to maxedoutman.com and get your journey started today.